Welcome back. Part two. Great Incarcerator, the United States of America. I'm going to go ahead and let this play because in the next video, you're going to learn where I grew up at. I spent a lot of my time incarcerated at. It'll bring us to Lucasville, SOCF, Southern Ohio Correctional Facility, and the riot. So let's get into part two and have at it. Hit the comments, folks, and subscribe, like, and share.
This prison system is less in your face than the Jim Crow system was. During Jim Crow, there were signs, whites only, hanging over the water fountains or the bathrooms. People were visibly forced to sit at the back of the bus. Today, people who are in prison are out of sight, out of mind. You don't have to think about them. You don't see them.
The stated goal in the name is ODRC, Rehabilitation and Correction.
It's not set up, designed to really rehabilitate people. It's not benefit society by just locking people up and creating a situation where they become more corrupt than what they were when they went in.
One of the questions is, how do you rehabilitate somebody that maybe was not habilitated in the first place?
My experience with the prison system started in very much the same way that a lot of people's do. I got caught up with drugs, and I started to deal with a lot of people of unsavory character. And the end result was me being addicted to drugs and committing a crime, which landed me a couple of years in prison.
I believe that it was my decisions that ultimately landed me in prison for a third of my life. I thought I wanted one thing when I really wanted another. And the one thing that I thought I wanted was a reputation for being what is commonly known as a tough guy in the streets. And my ambitions lofted no higher than that. Zero, none.
You're taking people who have been embroiled in some of the deepest of social problems, from poverty to inequality, to lack of access to education, lack of access to all sorts of fundamental social services and institutions. You bring them into an institution that further isolates them and is exclusionary, and expect them to leave or exit better.
They do a fairly poor job of rehabilitating or corrections. They're basically, at this point, they're warehouses.
It used to be that a criminal court was a criminal court. You dealt with criminal behavior. If somebody violated the law, then you said, okay, here's your punishment. Well, then there became some notion that crept in that if we could fix this person, then they won't come back. And since this was the point of contact here in the criminal court, they started dumping all of that on the criminal courts to figure out how to fix people.
If you are opposed to spending your tax dollars to better people, then why are you supporting the notion of incarcerating them? Perhaps if we took some of that money and invested it into the communities where the majority of these inmates are being birthed from, we could avoid having to support a prison system.
It's easy to add words like rehabilitation and correction. That's not their main function. Their main function is to make sure you don't leave. And they do a very good job of that.
They're horrible places. They're places that don't make people better people, they make them worse people. They generate anger and tension.
Ohio's Lucasville prison is one of the newest prisons, but like others, overcrowded.
The prison was built for one-person cells. Due to overcrowding, they put 2 people in each cell.
If you had a cellmate, it had to be somebody that you was pretty comfortable with being around, or it just wasn't going to work.
Convicted armed robber Kelly Chapman got a federal judge to declare the tight quarters unconstitutional.
There's no space, no room to move around. It can only lead to violence.
Today, the Supreme Court ruled that the double bunking was not excessive punishment. Justice Marshall was the only dissenter, calling the overcrowding unhealthful and dangerous. Justice Powell said the Constitution does not mandate comfortable prisons.
That was a very tragic decision.
Crowded and even harsh prison living conditions are part of the price offenders must pay.
The racism that is so deeply entrenched in our institutions is a structural racism.
We have these structures that have been put in place to control a community, to control a community that can become a volatile community. That can become a problem for the powers that be.
The prisons and the jails and the detention centers for immigrants and the military prisons. But we're also talking about the extent to which corporations are very deeply implicated in the expansion of prisons.
It's necessary to understand that the prison industrial complex is being perpetuated, and it's being perpetuated on purpose. It's being done intentionally. People are profiting off of the prison system in a really gross fashion.
The containment solution is prison. And then cynically, they figured out a way to make profit off of the containment solution.
How much soap do you need for 2.3 million people? So think of the soap companies.
It's horribly expensive to make a phone call from prison. Why? Because we got you, and we can enforce this on you.
So think of the fact that all of the communications companies are constantly scrambling to get the contracts with the state correctional agencies. And you can go on and on and on.
You have enough funds available for a 10-minute prepaid call. This call is originating from an Ohio correctional institution and may be recorded or monitored. Thank you for using Global Tellme.
You know, we say that once people pay their debt to society, that's it, but that's not true. People wear a scarlet letter. Once you're in prison and you get out, it's kind of hard to live that good life.
In the Ohio Revised Code, there are over 350 what's called collateral sanctions.
They could be denied the right to vote, automatically excluded from juries, legally discriminated against in employment, housing, access to education.
They're punitive beyond incarceration, and they effectively keep people locked out of the process of being able to earn income.
But I don't think these sanctions are collateral at all. I think the rules and laws that apply to those who are branded felons are an integral part of the system itself.
Interviewing for a job and applying for credit, those are the 2 most humiliating things you go through, especially for people with felonies, because they know, that's going to come up. And they always tell you that it don't really matter, but, once you say it, you're not going to get hired.
That's a touchy subject. Because I filled out 99 job applications, 99 in 3 weeks, and nobody called me back. 99 job applications, and on each one of them, I had to tell them that I had been convicted of a felony. I had to, because it's the law.
White guys who'd been to prison got called back more often than black guys who'd never been to prison. So oftentimes that box, it's just a ruse. They didn't want to give you the job based on race, and now they have this very good reason. Oh, you're incarcerated.
You know, when you got a felony, you last on the totem pole. It's just not going to happen.
If you compare, black folks who are jobless with white folks who are jobless, disparities in violent crime disappear. Violent crime exists in the African American community largely because joblessness has been so intense in the African American community for so long.
In Ohio, a collateral sanction is they teach you to be a plumber in Ohio's prisons, but you can't get a plumber's license.
It's hard to find a place to live. It's hard to be reacclimated with your family and your community. It's difficult.
During the Jim Crow era, housing discrimination was perfectly legal. Well, today, housing discrimination is perfectly legal against those who've been branded felons. For a minimum of 5 years, you're denied access to public housing. And, if you try to stay with relatives who live in public housing, they risk eviction just by allowing you to stay with them. Many homeless shelters now screen for criminal convictions. This system isn't designed for folks who've been branded felons to succeed on the outside. It seems fairly obvious that it's designed to do the opposite. It's designed to send folks right back to prison, which is in fact what happens.
To reform the structure of a prison, to change it, it's not going to happen. A prison's a prison. It's fundamentally what it is.
And how we break that cycle is a very difficult question. I think the fact that we're in an economic crisis now has led to some second looks at this issue, and maybe the solution is not just to build more prisons and incarcerate more people.
If we were really going to reform it, if we were really going to change it, well, it would probably come out looking like a university. It would come out looking like education. It would come out looking like a job. It's not going to be a prison.
Well, today we live in an age where most people believe that they're colorblind, or that at least they're not racist and harbor no racial biases.
If we ever want to be a healthy country that isn't hated and isn't despised even from within on so many levels, where we can actually have a peaceful, cohesive society, we have to respect that we can't keep slaves. I mean, it's a decision that was made many a moons ago, and now we're looking at this era of change, if you will. Let's look a little deeper.
How we do it, I don't know, because I don't think the public has the stomach for hearing. Public don't want to deal with that right now.
There's not one family in America, not just black family, it's not one family, black, white, Hispanic, that's not touched either by a family member, a loved one, or either a co-worker or somebody in a social setting that's been touched by incarceration.
Racial caste systems don't depend on racial hostility and open bigotry. They don't. What they depend on is indifference, the failure to care about people of other races as much as you care about your own. It's the indifference to the suffering and the plight of people of other races that is at the root of all caste systems. Failure to appreciate their basic humanity.
If you define me by my worst moment, if you define me by incarceration and all that it entails, then there has to be some room for redemption. Has to be. Justice, relative term, and worth. Peace. Come on, baby. Yo, it's getting crazy out here. It's getting crazy out here. The rich get richer while the poor die hungry. So I can't pick an elephant or a donkey. Suicide bombers think they're gonna see God for blowing up little kids standing out in the yard. Supremacists in many colors hate each other, blind to the fact that they are hating brothers. This world is not your home, and I just think you should know that when you die, you can't take your skin color where you go. And you cannot take the money either. And yo, the bling is just a lie, so don't listen to deceivers. Don't let the shine cloud up your mind and make you feel like something that's without a dollar sign. True shine only comes from within. It doesn't matter what you do or the size of your ends. I'm trying to show you where the true is shit. Come on, y'all, you can do it with me. Greed, ignorance, envy, and hatred. Police abuse, priests misuse, nothing sacred. There comes a point when it's all that we can take, and it's time for us to tear it down. Greed, ignorance, envy, and hatred. Police abuse, priests misuse, nothing sacred. There comes a point when it's all that we can take, and it's time.